Hey guys, it's Mr. Tomac back with another coding tutorial. This week we'll be building a Vegas-style slot machine in Scratch. I'm going to teach you how to use cloning commands like we did a few weeks ago in our Terror Tunnel tutorial. And we're going to learn about the mod command, a math function that makes repeating patterns a snap. So if you want to follow along with me, just go to the link at the top of the file description and load my Scratch starter file. And if you're still clueless about coding in Scratch, make sure to check out Cat and Mouse, my introductory Scratch tutorial. And hey, what happens in Vegas doesn't have to stay in Vegas. So make sure to like and subscribe so that your friends can hit the jackpot too. Let's get right to it. So here's the starter file that I'm going to get you started. I gave you a little bit of code just to give us a little jump start here. As you can see, as normal, we have all our graphics and sound effects ready to go. You can find the location of this starter file in the file description down below, or you can go to chromeworks.ca to find this and all my other previous lessons, dozens of coding lessons up there. So I've basically got one repeating pattern of sprites here. We've got 3 different slots inside our slot machine. I've just downloaded this slot machine from Google Images and modified it a little bit by cutting out the background where the actual icons will flash across the screen. And this will be kind of a mask that will cover up our sprites as we're going. If we look at the finished version of the game, which is right here, you'll see that when I hide the slot machine, we just have a pattern of sprites along the edge here, and these are just going to fall down to the bottom of the screen and then come back to the top and just keep repeating themselves over and over again. And that way will create the illusion that that they're rolling around in a circle the way they normally would in a typical slot machine. So we've got identical sprites here for the left, the middle, and the right slots. I've kept them separate just to keep the coding a little bit simpler here. Let's go back to the starter file. Alright, so here's our left guy. I've made the rest of them blank, and we'll just be making duplicates of this guy. So I'm actually going to delete the middle and the right guy here, and we're just going to duplicate the left character after we're done coding him. So let's have a look at what's going on here. When I click the green flag, we're going to set the first guy's position to an X of 75, so that's going to get our character here. As you can see, there's 4 different costumes. All of them are favorite Scratch characters. And so they're going to fall into the left slot here, which is at an X of minus 75. The main character is going to be hidden, and we're going to use cloning commands to have him duplicate across the screen here. It's a little bit big, so we're going to shrink him by 50%. Now there's a bunch of variables here that we're just initializing, getting ready to go here. This one called isClone is here just so we can differentiate between the main object and the clone. And so we don't want to give commands to the main object in a lot of cases. So, and because we're going to be cloning this a couple of times, we want each clone to be doing certain things, but if the main object does the same thing, it will really mess up our code. So we want the code to know that the hidden object shouldn't respond to the same commands that the clones are responding to. Now we've got some variables here. Slot 1 result is basically which object comes up. So we've got our Cat, Scratch, and Giga, and Gobo, and Pico here. So which one is the one that's actually selected, and do we have several of them in a row or not, is what we want to evaluate in the end here. And that's what slot 1 result will determine. Slot 1 go is the variable that's going to tell these guys to start moving or stop moving as they scroll across the screen here. Slot 1 ID is going to be the identifier of these characters. So so as they're going across the screen here, we're going to have them count off. This guy's going to be 1, this guy's going to be 2, this guy's going to be 3, and this guy's going to be 4. And that way we'll be able to tell the different clones from each other based on their height on the board here. And they'll start moving down the screen here, but this guy will continue to be ID 1 as he moves down the screen, basically. All right. Let's go back to our main code here. And then credits is the amount of money that we have, and pulls is the number of times that we've pulled on the lever to get the game running. So at the end, the game will theoretically end when we run out of money, and we'll see how many pulls we survived for how long we managed to pull the lever before we went bust and ran out of money. So we're going to set a random start position here. So we want all of these different rows to be set up basically randomly as we go here. So we have to figure out where our first character is going to end up on the screen. So our top character here is going to be the cat, who's going to be ID 1, but he's not going to necessarily appear at the top. We want him to appear in a random spot here. So we're going to just pick here a random number from 0 to 3 that's going to determine how high or low he starts up. And then we have to go through a fairly complex routine here to figure out how to get the next guy onto the screen. So let's say we determine that our main character, the cat, is going to end up in the main window here. Well, there's going to be one row below him. Let's go back here again. So if I make this appear, you can see that if the cat is in the main slot here, there's going to be the next character down is going to appear one down below, but then the next one has to appear way back in the top here. These are fixed positions, and we have a certain Y location for each one, and we want them to always stop in that location, which turns out to be a little bit trickier than you think it would be. So let's get into the coding of that. Now, so we're going to pick a random start position for the cat and then make all the other characters arrange around the cat. We're going to have them just duplicate in a pattern and continue moving like that. So we're going to repeat 4 times. We're going to create a clone of our cat, and then we're going to give him an ID number. So the first character we put down will be ID 1, the second one will be ID 2. Now this is a local variable, which means that that each of these characters is going to have a unique attribute that's different from the other ones. So local variables are really useful. They're something that you only get into when you start coding a little bit. They're a bit more of an advanced function, and they're quite useful for working with clones especially. So the idea is that each of these characters is going to have the same variable but a different version of it that will keep track of, in this case, the ID. Which of these icons am I at any given time? Okay, so that's the initial variables. So we've created our clones. The next command we're going to need is a when I start as a clone command, which you'll find under control at the very bottom here. So when these clones are actually created, we're going to want the initial guy to be called, so we're going, we're going to want the initial, let's cut that part out, Cam. Okay, we're going to start with a variable called isClone, and that's the one that's going to determine whether we're a clone. Since we've created a clone here, these new characters are going to be clones, so we're going to go to our variables and say set isClone to 1. And that will determine that all our new guys will have that variable 1, so we'll know that they're clones in the code. Now, our initial character is hidden, so let's make this the clone visible. We'll tell them to show. And now we need each one to function a little bit differently depending on what its slot ID is. So let's do some if statements here, one different one for each of our different characters in this slot here. We're going to create them 4 times here. So if slot ID is equal to 1, slot 1 ID is equal to 1. First thing I want to do is put a cat costume on that first character. So let's switch costume to cat A. Now here's where we get into the mod command. So we want these guys, the first guy to get into a specific position, and we want the next of the ones to go down below them. So what I've done is created a list here. Let's go ahead and have a look at our list variable. I've created a list called stop positions here, and this has recorded all the Y positions at which these guys are going to stop. So the top position, 85, is going to be around here. The next one, 25, is going to be around here. Then the next one, minus 35, is going to be in the middle. That's going to be the one that is actually the winning position, or the spot where the character appears. And then the next one down below that is going to be 95. So we want it basically cycling through these different heights as it moves through here. To do that, we're going to use a mod command. Now, a mod command, I've created a little simulation for you here just to show you how mod commands work. So normally when you're cycling through a list of something, and let's say you want your computer to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, like this. Well, in this case, he's counting 0, 1, 2, 3. So the way you would do that is create a variable like count here and set it to 1. And then you make it go up, and if it goes past a certain number, if your count is greater than 4, then we set it back to 1 again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so this is the sort of old-fashioned way to do it. It's a little bit cumbersome, and if you get into more complex code, it starts to run into trouble. So the more elegant way to do this is using a math command called mod, which you can find here in the operators commands. There's our mod command down there, and you don't have to understand the math behind the mod command, but basically it makes a number that's going up repeat itself and go back down to the beginning again. So if I'm counting a list of 4 of something, once it tries to go to 5, it'll bring it back down to 1 again. And so if I disconnect this code here, you'll see that I can create the same effect using this mod command here. So I'm setting a variable called count, and I'm modifying it with this variable called my variable mod4. So mod4 is the amount at which the list will reset itself again. Now mods always start from the number 0, so we have to add 1 to our modded number. The way this code is going to work is going to count 0, 1, 2, 3 right now. It's 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. Like that. So to make it actually count from 1 to 4, we have to go plus 1 in here, which we're going to do a little later on our code. So now we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and you see that we can modify the length of this list by changing the mod number. If I change this to 6, for example, now my cat's going to count up to 6. And if I want to go up to 10, now it'll count up to 10. So this is a really cool and efficient way to get your character going through a numerical list and going back down to the beginning again when it hits a certain number. Instead of using an if statement to make it go back down to the beginning, we use this mod statement, and it's a little bit more compact and a little bit more efficient. So how are we going to apply this to our own project here? So we're going to grab our number from this list here, our different slots that our character can go into, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to set our Y to one of those numbers. So let's go to our motion commands. We'll grab a set Y. Now, so this list is called stop positions. So I want to grab one of those 4 items from that list. So I'm going to go item 1 of stop positions. So in this case, we would set our Y to item 1 of stop positions, which is 85. If I click on it, you'll see that item 1 of stop positions is 85 here. So that would set our Y. Let's make our cat visible here and bring it to the front just so I can demonstrate this for you. Let's show and go to front. There you go. So there's our cat in position 85. If I tell him to go to item 2, you'll see it pop down to the next spot on the list, and item 3 is the next spot on the list, and item 4 is the next item on the list. So we want our cat to basically appear on at one of these 4 spots on the list, depending on what random number he picked here. And then we're going to want to populate the rest of them down below and then back up to the top of that list there. All right, so we're setting our Y to an item here. We want that item to be a variable though, right? So we picked that number called random start position. So let's grab that variable called random start position. Right now it's set to 4, so we roll the random number 4, and we're gonna put that into a mod command. So let's go grab a mod. Now our list is 4 items long here, so we're going to mod our number by 4. And remember, we add a +1 because the number it generates is going to be from 0 to 3. And we want it to be from 1 to 4 instead, so we'll go +1. Let's drop that into there. Excellent, and we'll pop that all, instead of the item number, we're going to put this variable in here. So we're going to set our Y to the random start position, and then the next time along the way we're going to change the random start position by 1. So let's say we did get a 4 here. We're going to change that variable by 1. So let's go change random start position by 1. Now that would normally give us a 5, right? So the next time we go through this list to tell our character where to go, we don't want him going to position 5 because there is no position 5. So we want that number to go back to 1 again. And that's what our mod command is going to do. So when we duplicate this, our next character is going to, so here's our slot ID 2. So our second character, who's going to be Giga, is going to a Y position that's 1 more on the list than the next one. And if the list gets, in this case, tries to go to 5, it'll send it back to 1 again. So this will tell the second guy to go to 85, basically. So let's have a look at what that looks like. I'm going to hide the slot machine graphic for a little bit so you can see a little bit more clearly what's going on here. And I'm also going to hide this sprite because we don't want the main sprite visible here. Okay, so let's click the green flag, and you'll see that we have our cat appearing here once, and then we have Giga appearing in the next spot. So our random number that we rolled here, this other cat, is something that will disappear later on the code. We won't worry about him. So watch, as I click the green flag and get different random values, the Giga will always appear in the slot underneath the cat, no matter where we go here. So here again, we have cat, and then we have Giga down below him. Let's click another random value here. So here's cat and Giga. And so we're creating some extra clones here because we're repeating this 4 times, right? If we change this to 2, then that other cat will disappear. Maybe that's a better way to simulate this. There we go. So there's our cat, and there's Giga down below him. Click the green flag, and our cat appears in spot 4, and Giga appears in spot 1. And we click now here, cat's in spot 3, and Giga's in spot 4. Let's add a third character here, so we'll repeat 3 times. And we'll duplicate this here, and we'll make the new character slot 3 or ID 3, and we're going to make him Gobo. And so now the next character to appear in the list is going to be Gobo, and he'll appear below Giga. So there we go. And because Giga is in spot 4, Gobo is going to be in spot 1. We can do the same thing one last time here. We'll make this ID 4, and we'll make this Pico. And that's all the changes we have to make to the code here, and we're going to make this repeat 4 times. And so now we've got a beautiful row here that randomly changes every time we do it. So no matter where we end up, they're always in the same order, and they're always going one after the other. That's the power of that mod command. Really, really cool how that works. I'm going to hide this list now because we're done with it. So we're generating all our characters along the list here, and to start in a random position, but always be in the same order. Beautiful. Okay, so we're making good progress here. Now we've got a whole bunch of commands that we're going to have to do that will affect how this character moves. So I'm going to continue working on this row of characters, and then we're just going to duplicate this and make the middle and right characters basically function the same way. So let's go ahead and do that. So the next thing I'm going to need here is We're going to do one block of code that tells the thing that basically controls how it's going to function as the game progresses. So we're going to be working mostly with when I started the clone commands here, because we're still functioning with clones. Let's go back to our control blocks here. When I started the clone, so this is going to be the main skeleton of the program here. We're going to do a forever, and we're just going to be waiting here for you to pull the slot lever on your slot machine to get things going. So we're just going to sit here waiting patiently for you to pull on the lever. We'll use a wait until command to do that. And we have a variable called slot1go that will tell our slot machine to start working. So in our initialization, we set that slot1go to 0, which is inactive. We're going to wait until that becomes active. And so our code will know that's going to run when slot1go is equal to 1. So it's going to sit there waiting for that variable to change. All right, when that happens, we're going to do a bunch of stuff that we're going to send off into little subroutines. So I'm going to create some custom blocks here. One of them is called activate spinner, and that's the block of code that's going to get our characters cycling through their list here from one to the next. So let's pop the activate spinner command. We'll fill all these up later. I just want to get the skeleton set up here first. The next custom block, so after we're running, we've got to get them to stop at a certain point. We can't just stop at a random spot as they're moving down the screen here, because we want them to lock into this slot. We want them to stop in such a way that they're always lined up exactly here. Otherwise, we might have a position where one of our characters is down here and one of them is here. And which one is the one that wins then? Of course, we don't know, because it's going to be ambiguous. We always want the winning row to be exactly in the middle here, so we can't let them stop wherever they want. So I've got a separate bit of code here called stop spinner that will always make sure that our spinner stops in the exact location we want it to. And we'll be doing that next. Then we've got a third block here called evaluate, which will figure out whether we score money for that. Of course, if we have 2 in a row or 3 in a row of these icons, then we'll get some money, a money payout for that. Whoops, I slipped that out of the way there. And if we get 3 cats in a row, then we get the big jackpot. So we've got to get our code to basically figure out what score we got for each different pull of the wheel. So let's do an evaluate down below here. So that's the basic skeleton of the game and how it's going to be functioning. So let's go ahead with the lever pull now. So we're going to be pulling this handle over here, and that's going to broadcast a message back to our sprites here that's called lever pull. So when I receive a lever pull message, we're going to start these characters doing moving across the screen, basically. So we're going to do a couple of things. Now, we also want to take some money away. It costs money to play the machine, so we're going to take 1 credit away each time we do this. Now, if I change the credits by -1 here, what's going to happen is our numbers, let me just show you, our credits are actually going to go down by -5 instead of -1. They're going to go down once for the sprite, and then because when I receive works just like when I started the clone, each of the clones is also going to listen to the same command and take the credits down by 1. So I'll show you how that works. Let's go change credits by -1. And we'll also want to change the number of pulls. We're counting the number of times we survived. So we'll change pulls by 1 here. But when I click the green flag, here's our initial credits at 10 and our pulls at 0. So we would expect the credits to go to 9 and the pulls to go to 1. But what in fact happens here is, oh, I actually have to activate it here. So let's go to our events and we'll broadcast that message. Lever pull. So when I pull my lever, my credits go down to 5 and my pulls go up by 5, because each of these clones and the main object that controls it is going to go by 5, because there's 5 different clones here. All right, so to fix that, we need only one of these characters to be activated, and we're gonna make the main object rather than the clone to respond to that. So right now up top here we've set isClone to 0, so the first character has that 0 value, so that's the only one that's actually going to be taking the money away. So if we go back down and say have this happen only if isClone is equal to 0. So let's grab an equal sign and we'll put isClone. Where's our isClone variable? There it is equal to 0. So only the original version of this sprite is the one that's going to be changing the credits around here. All right. Now, okay, so we have things functioning the way we want them to now. When I pull the lever, you can see that our credits are going down by 1, our pulls are going up by 1, the way that we want it to. Now the other thing that's going to happen when we pull on this lever is we're going to start this process running. Remember, we're waiting for the slot 1 go message to flip over to 1 so that we can activate our spinner. So that's what's going to happen here. Now we have 4 versions of this clone plus the master one that are all here. We don't want them all sending commands all at once here, so we need to make sure that only one of our clones is sending commands here. Like we're going to be generating random numbers, for example, and if we've got 4 different clones generating random numbers, then we're going to have very unpredictable results in our code. So let's make sure that only one version, the very first version of this clone, is the one that's doing the commands here. So let's grab an if statement and say if slot ID is equal to 1. And that will make sure that only the first clone, the cat, is the one that's generating numbers and doing all the random stuff here. And that will keep things consistent for us. So we want to flip over that variable. Let's go set slot 1 go to 1, and that will get our spinner activated. Now we want that spinner to be running for a certain amount of time, so we'll grab a wait command. And we want each of these rows to be spinning for a slightly different amount of time. So I'm going to set a random number here and then a different random number for the second row and a different random set of random numbers for the third row. So our first row is going to go from 3 to 5 seconds before it stops. And at the end of that 3 to 5 seconds, we're going to set that variable called slot 1 go back to over to 2, which is going to signify that that it's time to stop the spinner. Then we're going to wait a couple more seconds, and it only takes about 2 seconds or so for the spinner to stop. So when we're sure that our spinner has stopped moving and has landed in its final position, then we can get our object ready to start spinning the next time again by setting slot 1 go back to 0. So this is the traffic control for this particular row of sprites. It's going to get it moving, it's going to wait for it to stop, and then reset it so that it's ready to move again the next time we pull on that lever. Okay, so let's so nothing's actually happening any differently right now. Let's go over to the activate spinner start where we actually get this thing moving now. So let's go to do a repeat until, and we're going to repeat until that slot 1 go is equal to 2. Slot 1 go is equal to 2. There we go. And all we want to do is tell our sprites to move down. We'll change Y. So under motion, we're going to go change Y by -10. That'll get our sprites all moving down. And of course, when our sprites hit the bottom row, let's grab an if statement. So if our Y position is less than minus 155. So let's go less than, and we'll grab our Y position for our motion blocks. It's this little one down here. If our Y position is less than minus 155, so our screen goes down to minus 180, but because we can't do a detecting edge here because these different sprites all have different sizes. So I picked a spot where it looked like all these characters. Let me hide the slot machine. We don't really need to see it right now. So when this guy gets down to around here where he's touching the bottom, his Y position is going to be about minus 155. And so we'll know that we have to bring him back up to the top row here again. We'll set our Y to positive 85, which is our top row. All right, so our spinner isn't working yet, but we can do a broadcast to simulate a spin here. So let's go to our events. We'll grab a broadcast lever pull, and let's see this in action here. And there we go. Our things are out of alignment here because I dragged them out of place. And you'll see that when I broadcast a lever pull, our characters are starting to move now. And you can see inside the slot machine, when we make the slot machine visible again, that things are moving along quite nicely. I think I moved this a little bit off to the side here. Let's reposition it. And there, that's looking like a slot machine already. Beautiful. And you can see that we're going for a certain amount of time and then it stops, but you can see that it's stopping in a weird kind of a random spot here where it's not properly centered. So in the ideal setup here, we should have the middle row, this guy exactly in the middle, and this guy half visible, and the guy below him half visible as well. So that's where the stop spinner part comes in. We're going to want our character to stop in an exact position. We don't want it to be random. So let's go code that. The stop spinner works a lot like the original one. In fact, I'm going to duplicate this code here, right from repeat until down. And we're going to want it to basically function the same way, but we just want it to keep going until we lock into that spot. So it's only going to run for another second or so more until it lands in that position. So I'm going to get rid of the repeat until condition here, and I'm going to add a different repeat until condition that says repeat until I hit the location where we want to lock into. And those locations are visible here in our list, remember, that we looked at a little while ago. So we're going to wait until we hit 85 or 25 or minus 35 or minus 95. So whenever our Y position hits that spot, that's when we're going to stop running, and that's when our repeat until loop is going to stop. So to do that, we need a whole bunch of OR statements. Let's grab 4 OR statements and put them into a row here. 3 OR statements, which gives us 4 slots. And in each one of these, we need a Y position is equal to. So let's grab Y position is equal to that first spot on the list is 85. Now let's duplicate the equal sign and drag it over to the next spot. And in there we want to say 25. Then we'll duplicate again, put it into that next spot, which is minus 35. And that last spot right here is going to be minus 95. So keep moving down until you hit one of those magic numbers and then stop moving. And this is going to apply to all 4 of our clones as they're moving along the list here. And so let's try running that again, and we'll see what it looks like. And you'll see that it will actually line up much more evenly now. There we go. Where she stops, nobody knows. There we go. Perfect. And we can see half of Pico and half of Giga here. Beautiful. And Gobo is our pick. Let's do it one more time just to confirm. And there we go. And there's Pico is our selection here. And Gobo's up above and our cat's down below. Beautiful. So this is working quite nicely now. All right. Now we need that evaluate block. And all we're going to do with the evaluate block is basically figure out that, so the spot, this is the winning spot, is the character who's in this spot at minus 35Y. These other ones we don't really care about. It's Pico here who we want to keep track of. So what we're going to do is we're going to take his ID. Pico has a certain ID number. We're going to put that into a variable called slot1 result. So how do we get Pico isolated here? By looking at his y coordinates. So let's grab an if statement here, and we'll say if, we'll grab an equal to, and we'll say if our y position is equal to minus 35, that's the clone I'm interested in. All the other clones will ignore this because their y position isn't minus 35. So that one guy, we're just going to ask, what's your ID number? So we'll go set slot 1 result to my slot ID number. Now this wouldn't work if this weren't a local variable. Remember, if you're doing a global variable, then every single one of these clones would have the same ID number, which would be no good for us. And that's the power of local variables, a more advanced concept that you're going to get into more as you get deeper into coding. Okay, so now how does the computer interpret these results? We're going to do that a little bit later, but we're actually good to go with our spinner otherwise. So we're ready to duplicate it. Let's right click on our character. We'll get a little duplicate menu up here, and we'll get a new version that's been called left 2 here. I'm just going to drag it to the spot right. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get these guys reorganized here. Okay, doesn't want to go. Okay, I'm going to take this guy. Wow. I know you can reorganize these guys by dragging them around the screen, but it's a little bit tricky. There. Oh! Okay, I'm not going to worry about that for now. I'm wasting your time. So I know there are ways to get these guys reorganized on the screen by dragging them around. It's a little bit tricky, though. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about that. This next guy here, his name is going to be Middle. And we've got identical code here, which we're going to have to change around a little bit. So let's get into here. We're going to change slot 1 result to slot 2 result. We're going to change slot 1 go to slot 2 go, slot 1 ID to slot 2 ID. Where's our slot 2 ID? Isn't that weird? Okay, so that variable is not there. Let's just go ahead and create it. And it's a local variable for this sprite only. Slot 2 ID. I guess global variables, when you delete the underlying characters, the variable remains on the screen. But if you do have a local variable and you delete all of the bricks that use that variable, then that variable disappears. It works the same way with messages as well. Messages will only stay on your screen if there's an object that uses them. I'm going to have to sneeze here. Excuse me. All right, so there's our slot 2 ID, which is a local variable. We don't need to set our credits and polls here anymore because we only need to do that the once. But we do need a random start position here for these guys. And that's going to pick a slot 2 ID. That's going to be, it's going to function here with the slot 2 ID. All right. Is clone is still fine here. We need to change this to slot 2 ID. And the costumes are all good here. Everything else here is good. So we're just repositioning our guys inside here. None of this has to change other than the slot ID, which we changed to a slot 2 ID. Slot 2 ID. And let's go look at the rest of this code. And again, we're just going to change all our slot 1s to slot 2. So slot 2 go. We don't need to change the credits and the pulls here again. That's something that we only do the first time around on that first sprite. So let's get rid of all of this. And we'll say if slot, and we only need slot 2 ID 1 to be doing stuff here. We'll change this to slot 2 go, slot 2 go, slot 2 go. Now I don't think anything needs to be changed in these activate spinners, so this one has to be slot 2 go. and this one has to change to slot 2 result and slot 2 ID. Alright, so I might have missed one here, but I think I've changed all those settings over. And if we click on the green flag, oh, our guys are all in the same position here. So we're going to have to change our middle guy's X position. We only have to do that at the very beginning here. We'll just set our X to a different number here. So where do we set our X coordinate? Right here, it's -75. So we're going to move over to -5. X, that'll take the first guy over, and all the clones will be generated from there, so that will have fixed our problem. Green flag. There we go. Let's try that one more time. Still something wrong here. I think there's a variable that I forgot to shift over. Let's let me have a quick look, and I'll be right back. Okay, I sorted that out. So we're using some global variables here, like random start position is a random number that's generated, and both of these rows are using the same thing, which starts messing stuff up because both of them are generating different random numbers, and that starts to mess with the alignment of stuff. So we could have fixed that by using a local variable, but the easier way to fix this is just to have each of these generate its row a little bit differently from each one. So we're just going to put a tiny little pause in here. So right underneath the green flag, I added a wait 0.1 seconds, and that gives that first row time to generate itself before the second row generates its random numbers and starts putting stuff down here, and that fixes our problem. So when I click the green flag, you can see here that both these guys are generating the same list in the same order: Pico, Cat, Giga, Gobo, Pico, Cat, Giga, Gobo, but in different orders using different random numbers. And no matter what we do, they're working the same way. And let's try a little broadcast here as well, just to make sure that our movement's working properly. So we'll go broadcast lever pull. And you can see they both start moving. Now we want the timing, the second row to always end a little bit after the first row. So we're going to change that timing here as well for how long this lasts. So the first row is lasting for 3 to 5 seconds, and the second row we're going to, on average, have it go a little bit longer. So that's going to be from 4 to 6 seconds. Now that doesn't mean that the first row is always going to end before the second row, but generally it will tend to do that because of this random number selection. Let's go pull the lever one more time here. And you can see the second one's taking its time, and there we go. Okay, beautiful. All right, we need to do this one more time for our right-hand row, and I'll try to remember that delay. So we're gonna have to add an even bigger delay for that third row. And we'll make that, I did some playing around, it looked like 0.3 was the amount of time to go with that. So I'm gonna duplicate the middle row here. I'm gonna change it to 0.3. Notice that I duplicated the middle row rather than the left one, because we pulled some stuff out of that left one to make the middle one, and the right-hand one will look more like the middle one than the left one. So we'll call this one right. We'll change that timing to 0.3. Now, I believe I still don't have a slot 3 ID here, so let's go ahead and make that. Slot 3 ID. Remember, it's a local variable for the sprite only. All right, so let's go change all those variables now. Slot 3 result, slot 3 go, slot 3 ID, slot 3 ID here as well. I'm going to change this one to slot 3 ID, and you get the ID. Slot 3 ID. Notice how I'm right-clicking on the variables to change them rather than dragging in a new one. You can always modify variables by right-clicking them that way. Slot 3 ID. Slot 3 go. Slot 3 ID. Slot 3 go. Slot 3 go. Okay, so I've changed all those variables over. Now the real proof is in the pudding, of course, so we're going to test this out first by clicking the green flag. You'll know that something's messed up. Again, I didn't change my X variable over, so let's do that first. My X setting is going to be 65 for this row. So this should be looking perfect by the time we get it going here, and if it's not, then you know that something's messed up. There we go. It took us a few clicks of the green flag, but now this is reliably setting itself up properly. And each one is generating a slightly different random set here. Oh, we just got a jackpot here. There we go. Okay, so that's generating randomly, doing exactly what we wanted to. Let's do a lever pull here and make sure that's working properly as well. Where she stops, nobody knows. The first one, okay, we didn't change the timing for that last one. Let's change that timing over to, I believe it's going to be 5 to 7 seconds. Now you can mess with these timings however you like. Alright, anyway, but it does appear our lever pulls are working nicely now. So we're kind of done coding these guys. So we can make the slot machine appear again, and this is going to look much nicer. I'm going to hide that list as well, which is kind of cluttering up our screen. And we have a variable here as well under our right character that we need to hide. All right, so things are looking good here. Let's pull that lever one more time. So we've already got a nice little slot machine going here. We just have to add some bells and whistles and our scoring mechanism, and then that's going to work fairly well here. Ooh, I'm seeing a blank object here, so something is messed up here. I'm going to have a look at that right now. Okay, so it turns out this code is very, very finicky. There's just one number that was a little bit off. Here under our stop spinner, if our Y position, we had -155 here, and we actually had to change that to -154. Just that one pixel difference made it so that an object at one point didn't flip over back to the top again, and that made the two objects overlap each other. Just very, very finicky. So just go ahead and change that number in all three of those rows, and that should fix our problem. Okay, so we're ready to move on here. Let's go ahead and do our pull handle next, and then we're going to do our scoring mechanism, add a few little bells and whistles, and just make the game better now. We're basically functioning now, or we're just adding a whole bunch of different features here that are going to make the game look more professional. Speaking of looking professional here, right now you can see I've got a backdrop here that has the Chromeworks label on it. If you want to design your own, it's not a black backdrop, sorry, it's a sprite here. If you want to design your own sprite, go ahead and do that. I've given you a version of this that has just a blank slot machine that you can use however you like. I've got the Chromeworks one here that I obviously want to plug my own operation here, but if you want something a little more generic, feel free to switch over to this one here. All right, so let's go to our pull handle and we'll start coding that next. All right, when green flag is clicked, we're going to want this guy up at the front. So let's tell him to get, you can see that right now he got tucked behind the machine, which is no good. So we'll go to front layer, and we'll make sure he stays in the right position so we don't accidentally drag him around. We can say go to that position. If you're worried about not playing it in the maxed out screen and people accidentally dragging that around, you can put that inside of forever, and that will make sure that no matter what you do, you won't be able to drag it out of place here. That's not a problem when you're playing it on the project page, or when you're playing it with a maxed out screen where you're not allowed to drag things. unless they're set as draggable, but it's a good little precaution to take when you're coding things. All right, and so the real action happens when I click on this guy. So let's go to our events. We'll say when this sprite clicked. Here it is, when this sprite clicked. And we basically want to make sure that all three of these guys have stopped. So we're going to disable this handle if our guys haven't stopped. And the best way I figured to tell whether these guys were done or not was I just checked that slot 3 go, and if slot 3 go has been flipped back to 0, then odds are that we're ready for another spin again. So I'm going to grab an if statement here and say if slot 3 go is equal to 0, and that will be a pretty good guide for us. So if it's not 0, if the things are in the process of spinning, we're not going to be able to pull on that handle again. It'll be locked. Okay, so when we are able to pull on it, we're going to broadcast that message, lever pull, and then we're going to repeat. Well, we want to create the illusion that we're pulling on this knob. So we could make it go down, which is the way a knob would go if we're pulling it towards us. So we want it to go down, but we also want it to go towards the camera as well. So we're going to make it bigger and go down at the same time to simulate pulling a lever forward. So we're going to use a repeat 10 loop here. And we're going to change the size by 1. So we'll make it get bigger. Just a little bit bigger. And we're going to make it move down a little bit. We're going to go change Y by -5. Now let's duplicate that repeat 10 block and put it right underneath. And we're just going to reset everything back again. So we're going to go -1 for the size. That will bring it back down to the regular size again, and change Y by 5. All right, let's click the green flag. We got that off the screen here. You can see when I pull on this, it actually creates a nice appearance here. Whoops, something's messed up on us again here. Let's make sure this game's properly reset. Yeah, and things are looking good here. And I tried clicking it too early, it wasn't working. Let's try clicking it now. Yeah, we're good. And it really does create a nice appearance that we're pulling on the knob, doesn't it? Beautiful. Okay, so that part's good. Now let's add some sound effects, I think. That would be the next thing to do. So I believe that all the sound effects are hidden under, yes, under the slot machine object here. So let's have a look at the slot machine object. So I've just made this the holder for all of the rest of the sound effects and a lot of the other sort of fun stuff that adds some of the fun look to the game. All right. So let's go to our code here. We'll go to our events when green flag clicked. Let's set a starting position for this guy. We're going to go 0 -100, which is our starting spot, just in case we accidentally move that out of the way. We're going to say go to front layer. Now we don't want we want this behind the other guy, so we're going to have to go to front and then immediately move it backwards 1 layer. And you can see that that puts everything back into the proper spot here. All right. So for the sound effects here, when I receive a lever pull, we're going to play a sound called pull. Let me play that sound for you right now. And so that's the first sound, the pulling back of the lever. And then we want a spinning sound, which is pull 2. And we're going to have that repeat continuously until everything stops, basically. So let's go. So we're going to go play sound until done. And that will play that initial pull sound. And then we're going to do repeat until. And we're going to wait for that slot 3 go variable to equal 2, which will tell us that slot 3 has finished moving, and that'll be a good indicator that we can stop with the spinning sound. So let's go slot 3 go is equal to 2. And we're going to play the sound again until done. Play that sound, pull 2. Okay, so we've got a nice little sound effect going here. Let me show that to you right now. Beautiful. Still got some inconsistent results here. I'll let you know if there's something. I know that I've troubleshot this on my final version of the program, so there's something that's a little bit off here. I'll give that a little look later on, and hopefully I can fix that up for you guys before we're done this tutorial. Alright, so that sound effect's looking nice anyway. Let's try it one more time. Beautiful. Okay. Now, only thing that's left to do here is what happens if we get different combinations here. So in this case, we've got 2 gobos in a row, which would give us a $3 payout. So we're losing $1 each time, but we're getting a couple of dollars back every time we get one of these occurrences, which is not altogether rare. So this is what's going to keep you going, these little payouts. If you get 3 in a row, you're going to get a bigger payout of, I believe, $10. And then we're going to get a huge payout if you get 3 cats in a row. That's going to be your jackpot, which is going to be worth $200. And we're going to have all kinds of bells and whistles and fun stuff happen when that happens. Okay, so this is where that evaluate comes back in again. So we're evaluating each time and adding that variable here, which is called slot 1, slot 2, and slot 3 result. I'm going to make those variables visible for a little bit, so we can see what they look like on the screen here. And you can see that our slot 1 result is 3, or ID 3, which is gobo, and our slot 3 result is number 2, which is our cat, and that's all looking good. I thought the cat was number 1. Huh. Let's try that one more time. That's looking better. So something's a little bit off here. There we go. Are we got the proper results? No. So something's messed up in our results here, eh? Did I change all those slot reasons? Oh, okay. So this slot 3, instead of changing it to slot 3 ID, I changed it to slot 3 go. There we go, we'll change that to slot 3 ID. Let's double check it in our other positions. Slot 2 ID. Alright, that would probably explain it. Slot 1 ID. Okay, let's try this one more time here. Make sure this is working properly. Whoa, we got some weird stuff happening here still. Alright, so we've got 3, which is gobo, and then 2 cats, which are 1. Okay, so those numbers are good now. We still are having some problems with these guys not flipping over properly, and I will have a look at that a little later, as I said, and I'll try and figure out that little bug. But let's just keep pressing forward here anyway. Okay, so back to our slot machine. Or no, sorry, we're gonna do the rest of the evaluation over on our right sprite here. So we've got our right character here. We're doing a little evaluation here just to determine what number this should be. But now we have to start interpreting those numbers. I'm gonna do that all inside of the right-hand sprite here. We only need to do it once, so we might as well do it inside the right-hand one, which is the one that's going to be ending last, generally speaking. So let's go have a look at that, evaluate. All right, so we need to wait a little bit longer just to make sure it's done. There is a little bit of overlap here. So if we wait 1 second, at the end of this here, that will make sure that all 3 of these guys are actually done before we start calculating what kind of score we're going to get for this. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of nested if-else statements here that we're going to use. We're basically going to check and see the most common occurrence, and if that doesn't occur, hold it, slot 1 result. So no, we're going to do the least common occurrence, and if that doesn't work, then we're going to go to the next most common, and we're going to default basically back to the most common occurrence, which is nothing much happens, you don't earn any money, and nothing good comes of it. So we'll start with the most rare occurrence. So let's go grab an if-else statement, and we'll pop it in here. So we want to know if, basically, if we've got 3 cats in a row. So we're going to look for 3 in a row and then check and see if that 3 in a row is cats. So let's grab an and symbol here. And we'll grab an equal to and equal to. So if something's equal to something, so we can't say if slot 1 result and slot 2 result and slot 3 result are the same. There's no way to evaluate that here inside the script. So we're going to have to check, is 1 and 2 the same, and are 2 and 3 the same, and that'll tell us whether the entire row is identical. So let's go ahead and grab some variables and pop them in there. So slot 1 result, if slot 1 result is equal to slot 2 result, and slot 2 result is equal to slot 3 result, then we will have a big prize, basically, right? But first let's check. So this means that we've got a good result where we have 3 in a row here. Inside here, we're going to do another if-else statement. So if that's true, let's check and see if it's a jackpot. If it's 3 cats in a row, we'll grab and that would mean that all 3 of our guys here are going to be slot 1 result is equal to 1. We only need to check one of them though, because we've already filtered to see that they're all the same. So if they're all the same and slot 1 result is equal to 1, that means that all 3 of them are 1, and we have won a jackpot. So let's go ahead, we're just going to do some broadcasts here to determine what to do with that. I'll go new message, and we'll say jackpot. And we're going to deal with those in another spot in the program here. So if this is true, all 3 of them are the same, and it's not a jackpot, then the else condition would be big prize. Big prize, there we go. All right, so if we haven't won a big prize or a jackpot, then we go down to the next layer of analysis. Here, the else statement will be triggered. And in here, we're going to check and see if we have 2 in a row. So let's go to our if statements again. We'll grab an if-else. And in here, we're going to say if we need 2 equal signs and an or. So we're going to say if number 1 is equal to number 2, slot 1 result is equal to slot 2, or slot 2 is equal to slot 3. So either of those conditions are 2 in a row, either these 2 in a row or these 2 in a row. So if we get 2 in a row, we're going to broadcast a message here that says small prize, and that'll just give us a little bit of money to keep us going. This is the way real slot machines work, boys and girls. All right, and if none of those are true, if nothing has lined up properly at all, then things are just sad for us and we don't get any prize And we're just going to go play a sound here. So let's go to our sounds, and we're going to play the sound jump until done. And that sound is kind of a little sad. We didn't get anything. That's really sad for us. So when all these things are done evaluating, we're going to change a variable here. We're going to go set variable round over. And we need that so that we can set round over to 1. And we're going to use that to determine whether whether the game over event should be triggered or not. When our money is down to 0, we still want to have, like when we pull the lever, our credits are going to go down to 0 once we get down to the end of the game. And we still get one more chance to earn money. So we're going to check and see if our credits are 0, but we can't end the game until our credits are 0 and this guy has stopped spinning. And that's why we need that round over to go off here after we're done evaluating. All right, so let's keep moving here. All right, so now we need to do some stuff with all the various events. We're going to have all that happen inside our slot machine graphics. So we've got these broadcasts going out, and we need to set some different events up to happen inside the slot machine depending on what happens. So in some of these cases, we're also going to need our background to react as well. So we're just going to do a whole bunch of stuff here to change what happens when we receive different prizes here. So let's do a when I receive. Okay, so when I receive a small prize, we're going to have a little sound. I've grabbed this sound from the Scratch library. It's a sound called Magic Spell. We're just going to play this. So that's just a little tickle to tell you that you got something, that you won a bit of a prize here. So let's go, we'll start that sound. And while that sound is playing, the Magic Spell, we're also going to have a little bit of a coin slot noise. So I've got a couple of different coin slot noises. I've downloaded these from freesound.org, my favorite sound website. Let me show you what this small payout sounds like. That's just a sound of a few coins dropping into your thing. I also have a bigger one here called Payout that will put quite a bit more money into your thing. And so we're going to, depending on the size of our payout, we're going to have these different sounds go. So let's start with the small payout here, since we've got a small prize. So let's start sound, small payout. And so those two sounds are going to play simultaneously. I'll click it to simulate this. There we go. So while that's happening, we want to be dribbling coins into our little bucket. So I'm just going to do a repeat. So I could just go change credits by 3, but instead I'm going to change credits by 1 3 times, and that'll kind of slowly up our credit count a little bit. Let me show you what that looks like. We'll go to our variables. We'll go change credits by 1 3 times, and we'll put a little delay in there. Wait 0.2 seconds. And that will give us some time to see those numbers going up. So if you look at the credits here, when I click on this, there we go. And that'll up that a little bit. Okay, beautiful. Now, for our big prize, for our next level up, we're going to change our points by 5, I think. Actually, we're going to get $10 for that for the next big prize. So let's go when I receive under events. When I receive a big prize, I've got a different sound effect here. So we're going to play a teleport sound. This is again a stock sound from the Scratch library. Let's see what that sounds like. Actually, we're going to do start sound rather than play sound till done. Teleport 2 actually. And at the same time, we're going to play that small payout sound again. Now that's not going to last long enough, that sound effect. So we're going to do half of our 5 points here, and then we'll repeat that sound and do the other 5 there, and that'll keep it running a little bit longer. So let's go repeat 5. And inside there, we will change credits and wait. I'm just going to duplicate this block from here. So we'll change credits by 1 and wait 0.2 seconds. Actually, I think I wanted to go 0.1 seconds here just to get the timing right. I did some playing around with it. So let's see what, and then we'll duplicate all of this. So we're going to duplicate the small payout sound plus the loop and have that go again. And so this will last a little bit longer, and hopefully the sound effects and the credits going up should both last the same amount of time. So we've got 20 credits here when I click here. There we go. And you see I timed it so that as soon as the small payout sound was over, the credits finish rolling up as well. Beautiful. Okay. So it's all about timing to make this look really realistic, right? Okay, then the last potential prize we can get is the jackpot. So when I receive a jackpot, and that's only going to happen if I get 3 caps in a row. So let's go to our events. When I receive a jackpot, we're going to get 200 points here. So we're going to repeat 200 times. And we're going to change our credits by 1 inside of here. We're going to change credits by 1. Now in this case we want, it's going to take a long time to roll up those 200 points, so we're not going to put a delay in there at all. We're just going to make it roll up, but there's so many numbers here to go up that you see it's going to take quite a while to get up there. So, whoop. Oh, I thought there'd be a delay. So maybe we do need to add a delay there because it's actually happening immediately. All right, let's add a 0.1 second delay there. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, we want these numbers to go up faster than that. Let's try 0.01 seconds and see what that looks like. There we go. That's nice and fast. That should be better. All right. So you notice there's no sound effects here. The sound effects are going to happen for that are going to happen over in our backdrops because we're going to do something extra cool with our backdrop when we score a jackpot here. Let me show you what that is. Let's go over to our backdrops. So we're doing a few different things here to in the backdrop as well as in the slot machine sprite here, just to acknowledge when we've got a score here. So okay, so the last potential prize we can win is a jackpot where we get 3 cats in a row. Let's go when I receive that. I've actually cut this into 2 different events because there's a lot going on here at once and I want the timing to be recorded perfectly. So we'll start with the points. We're going to repeat 200 times. And we're going to change our variable, our credits, by 1 each time. Then we're going to do a second event here that's going to control the sound effects. So when I receive jackpot, we've got a jackpot sound here that I've downloaded, which is something downloaded from a real casino. Listen to this. There we go. That's our sound effect. Beautiful. All right, so we're going to start that sound. Start sound. Jackpot. Then we're going to repeat that payout sound, that long payout sound, over and over again because it's going to take quite a while for those 400 things to go. So let's repeat 4 times. We'll start sound, payout, and while we're doing that, we're going to do a loop to control the brightness of the screen. So we're going to make the entire slot machine kind of glow a little bit. And this is so this is going to go inside this repeat 4 times loop. We're going to repeat 20 times. And this is what's going to slow stuff down so that payout doesn't happen too quickly here. So we're going to go change brightness, change color effect, change it to brightness. We're going to change it by 2. And then I'm going to duplicate that repeat, and we're going to make our brightness, we're going to make our brightness go back down, so up. Sorry, you can see that's way too much there. We're going to go up by 2, and then down by -2. There we go. And so this repeat 200, without this, you can see it's going to go up right away. It will just jump our numbers up. But once we add this sound effect here, it's going to take longer for this loop to execute. And you'll see that when I actually broadcast my jackpot event, the numbers will time quite nicely, so that our numbers will keep going up until the sound effects are over. So let's try that out, and you'll also see that glowing I was talking about. Let's hide those variables because we don't need to see those anymore. And so let's see what that looks like. There you can see the machine's glowing, the numbers are going up quite nicely. And then it's a little bit off the timing there, so the music, the sound effects keep going a little bit after the credits stop running up there, but you get the idea. It's pretty close. Alright, so that's good. Now we have some more changes, some more visual effects we're going to do over on the backdrops area as well. You'll notice if you look at the costumes for my backdrops, I have a backdrop that's green here, and we're going to flash that every time that we win as well, depending on what our win looks like. So let's go back to our backdrops here, and we're going to code a little bit. I don't think we have any code on our backdrop at all right now. So let's start with a green flag. So let's switch our backdrop to the default. Switch backdrop to default. So that'll make sure that we're on the white background when the game starts. Then we're going to have a couple of events happen here depending on what our prize is. So let's go when I receive a small prize. We're going to switch that backdrop to green. We're just going to wait 1 second and then switch it back to default. Switch it back to default. There we go. And so let's go trigger that event just to show you what that looks like now. I'm going to populate the screen with some guys so that we can just get a more accurate look at what this looks like. So when I go small prize, you can see it turns green for a second and then flashes back to white again. Just like that. Okay, so next let's do a big prize. When I receive a big prize, let's go repeat 5 times. We're going to switch our backdrop to green and then back to white again. So I'm just going to duplicate this, pop it in there. We're going to wait 0.2 seconds. And we actually need to add one more wait, 0.2 seconds. We're going to flash back and forth basically when I receive a big prize. So it's going to go green, default, 5 times. Let me show you what that looks like. So we're going to go big prize. There we go. It's going to flash green a little bit while the sound effects are going. Good. All right. And then for our jackpot, when I receive jackpot. So let's go to our events. When I receive jackpot, we're going to repeat 10 times here. It has to last a little bit longer. We're going to switch our we're going to do the same thing, flipping back and forth, but we're going to do it 10 times instead of 5. So I can just duplicate this block. Actually, so instead of doing a new 10 here, we'll just change this one to repeat 10 and pop that in there. So let's see what that looks like. We'll simulate that by triggering a jackpot event. There we go. So all of this stuff together gives us a nice, satisfying payoff when we get our big prize. Excellent. Okay, so the last thing we need here is a game over event when green flag clicked. So we need to basically have the game right at the start here wait until our credits are down to 0 and we've pulled our last pull of the trigger, and then our game will if we get a bust here, if we don't get a cash payout, then our game will be over. So we're gonna just do when the green flag is clicked and then just do a wait until here. So let's go to our events. we'll use, or sorry, it's a control block called wait until, and we're going to wait for those two things to happen. So we're going to go and, so we're going to say credits are equal to 0. Well, grab another equal sign and pop it here for now. So variables, credits are equal to 0, so we have no money left, and the wheel has stopped spinning, so our round over variable has flipped to 1. So if both those two things happen, then we will set the credits. We're just going to do a little visual thing here to show that our game is over. So our credits are going to come up with bust. We're just going to change our credit variable. We'll set our credits to a little XX, do capital X's here, and that'll show that we can't, that we have no money left. We're going to make sure that we can't pull that knob again, so we can do that by setting our slot 3 go variable back to 2. So that normally triggers the stop, the spinning event, but it'll just get it stuck in this loop here where that variable is 2 and we're no longer able to pull on that lever. So instead of doing a stop all event, the problem with doing a stop all here is as soon as we stop the game, all those clones are going to disappear and we're going to end up with a blank screen, which isn't really cool looking. So I thought that a better way to handle it would be to just freeze the game here so that we can't enter any more input. We'll wait 1 second here. And then we're going to play a you lose sound. I already have that there. That's a scratch sound called you lose. Oh, actually, that's one I downloaded from Freesound. There's one here called... No, that's the only one we want to use. Yeah, so you lose. So it goes... And that will let you know that your game's over. We're also going to black out the screen here. So we're going to change the brightness effect on the screen here until the screen goes totally black. So we're going to go to our looks. We'll change brightness by -10. And that about does it. Oh, we didn't put that you lose sound in. I'm sorry, I talked about it and I didn't do it. So go to our sounds, start sound, you lose. There we go. And so we can trigger that event here. Actually, we can simulate what that's going to look like by changing our money. Now, let's take a bit of luck here. We're going to set our credits to 1. We're going to pull the handle one last time here just to see. So we'll set our credits to 1, and assuming we don't get any kind of payout, then we'll be able to see what happens when the game ends here. So let's pull it. Ooh. Something is messed up here. Let's just try resetting the game from the beginning here. And we'll set our credits to 1. Ooh, something bad has happened here. Alright, got a couple of bugs left in the game. I'm just going to stamp those out, and I'll just come back with one last segment for you guys. And then we'll be good to go. I know this game is working in my final version, so I just have to do a quick comparison to see what I messed up here. I'll be right back. Okay, I've stamped out all the bugs, I think now. I've just pulled that lever about 100 times just to make sure there was no more odd little occurrences that happened rarely in the game, and I think we're pretty much flawless now. So the problem that was happening with the game over was over here in our evaluate. We're over in the right-hand character. We waited for this guy to finish his wheel, and then we set the round over to 1, and then it stayed at 1. We never reinitialized it back to 0 again. So after we pull that handle right over here under lever pull, here's where we have to set that round over back to 0 again. So insert that 1 block here, and that will solve our game over problem. Let me simulate that for you right now. We'll just go back to our variables here again, and we'll set our credits to 1 to simulate, to simulate the end of the game here. So if we pull on this tab now, theoretically, if we do bust here, there we go. Our credits go to XX, and our background goes to black, and we're no longer able to pull our lever, which means the game's over. Alright, that part's good. Now, we occasionally had a little bug showing up here again where these guys were not flopping back to the top again, and then you got two of them piled on top of each other. I had the proper solution for that problem, which is that the number had to be this number to roll over if Y position is less than, had to be minus 154 and minus 155, but what I neglected to notice was that this occurs in two different places. So in activate spinner, it should be minus 154, but also in stop spinner, it should be minus 154. So there's 6 different places to check. In each of these sprites, there's 2 spots. So check activate spinner in both these locations for middle, left, and right. And as long as those numbers all say minus 154, then you're good to go. So this is a really finicky little program, and all the numbers really need to be perfect, and the timings need to be perfect, or everything kind of falls apart. There might have been a more logical way to put this together, but based on how I built this, I ended up with some very, very fine tolerances here where I had to play with the timings a lot. So by all means, you guys can remix this game, but don't mess with those timings if you can, because you're going to end up in trouble. And if you do end up in the weeds, just go back and revert to my numbers for these things here. You can change this around with new graphics, however, just make them roughly around the same size. So instead of characters from scratch, you could do Mario characters or characters from other famous video games. Just keep them all roughly the same size and the same distance apart on the screen here. You can certainly mess up this background, add new sound effects and backgrounds, and all sorts of other new events you could have. When a jackpot happened, you could do like fireworks events or all sorts of cool stuff. So there's so many potential ways that you could remix this game and do some interesting new features with it. So I'd invite you, as always, to share your remixes with me. I've got a remix room set up at chromeworks.ca/project. You'll see a project page for this particular task, and if you click on the remix room, you'll get to a Scratch studio where you can share your stuff. If you've done a really particularly interesting remix, I'll show it on my live stream, which airs Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. on YouTube. Until then, I'll be back next week with another live stream. This week, which is the week of April 17th, there will not be a live stream. I've got spring break and I'm moving this week, but I will see you guys all again the following week, which is April 24th. So be back with another live stream and another brand new game tutorial next week. Thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you next time.